Hey guys, yeah, it's about 12:06 in the afternoon. I just went to lunch about 15 minutes ago, so I got about 45 to 55 minutes remaining on lunch. But I thought I'd come on here and kind of talk about, do a little talk on wrestling, talk a little wrestling, talk some wrestling news, or wrestling related news, that is. First of all, I haven't read the article mostly, but according to ringsidenews.com, WWE, there's a rumor, I'm going to take it like that, there's a source and a rumor going around saying that WWE is expected to make big plays, possibly for certain NJPW and ROH stars. In other words, WWE, according to a rumor and a source, is planning to make major moves towards acquiring Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, as well as maybe a few others, but mostly those three, maybe even Cody for all we know. And get this, according to rumor and source, WWE plans to make these moves, if you will. They plan to make these moves a reality, or attempt to make them a reality, or basically plan to get it done. If this is true, if this source and rumor is true, WWE plans to make this happen before the G1 Supercard in Madison Square Garden next year. That's right. WWE is planning on trying to make a move in acquiring basically the heart of the elite, the golden elite, or at least three-fourths of the golden elite, basically the Bullet Club, the heart and soul of the Bullet Club, before the G1 Supercard. Now, again, I haven't read much of the article, I haven't read it at all that much, but if this is true, it shows you how desperate WWE is to prevent this event by Ring of Honor and New Japan from going off without a hitch. It shows you that WWE is willing to do whatever it takes to make sure they're the only known game in town. That is if, and it's a strong if, this source and rumor turns out to be true. And I know some people watching might say, well, that's kind of petty on WWE's part, that they'd want to go as far as to make sure 3 of the top stars in New Japan and Ring of Honor are under contract to them before the G1 Supercard. I know some people watching will be like, it sounds like, this is what I hear, this is what I think, this is my opinion. I think a lot of people watching this will probably be like, that, again, they'll probably be like, well, that's kind of petty on WWE's part, but I know some of them will point out that WWE is showing fear. They're showing fear at the fact that they see the potential threat that this G1 Supercard poses, not just to the company as a whole, but to their event known as WrestleMania. That this G1 Supercard could end up being more of a success than WrestleMania. And WWE doesn't want that to happen. So if, again, like I said, if these rumors and sources are true, then WWE is doing obviously whatever they can to make sure they're the only game in town that anybody wants to be part of. But again, that's all dependent on whether or not these rumors of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks being pursued by WWE before the G1 Supercard event in Madison Square Garden is true. Because if they're not true, then that's great. You know, we know inevitably the Bucks and Omega, from the sound of it, through many reports and sources and all that, in news articles, we know eventually the Bucks and Omega are going to be WWE bound. We know that's bound. We know that's going to happen sooner or later. But whether or not that happens after WrestleMania, which potentially could be the best time to make it happen, is up to WWE and up to Omega and the Bucks. Because you know Omega and the Bucks are going to want to have some stipulations. Are going to want some demands met if they want to be signed. Like, there's no doubt they'll want to stay as the Elite. They'll want to still continue what they're doing in Japan and Ring of Honor in WWE. They're going to want to basically keep the persona. They're going to want things virtually unchanged if they go to WWE. That's basically the primary demand that you know the Bucks and Omega are going to want. Now, again, the report is just a rumor. It's just a report that just an article I saw highlighted on ringsidenews.com. It's just a report. Obviously, it's being reported that WWE wants to make major plays for these guys, as well as probably some others. And the only reason for this, and I'm sure they'll talk about this in their article, is because WWE doesn't want the Supercard event to come off as successful as potentially it could be. So that's one thing I want to talk about. And honestly, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about something else. The Mae Young Classic. Now, Pro Wrestling Unlimited has pretty much uploaded 2 videos having spoilers given to them about who's advanced in the rounds in the tournament of the second annual Mae Young Classic. However, even though PWU has reported some spoilers, if not a few spoilers, it seems that WWE is finally doing something about that, which is kind of weird. Seeing as though WWE has decided now would be the best option and the best time to do this. According to the report that I read online, J.J. Williams, and we're not talking to J.J. Williams, football player. No. We're not talking him. It's just he has the same name as that J.J. Williams, football player. But anyway, J.J. Williams of Wrestling Observer and F4W Online, according to Ringside News, tweeted out that WWE, mostly those working for the company, like security and production, whatever, something, probably mostly security, had singled him out. Yeah, WWE had singled, according to what Williams said, singled him out during the Mae Young Classic. Now, he tagged Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer when he first reported this. And basically, according to the tweets, according to several of the tweets he put out, because he kept updating fans on the situation, WWE basically said that, according to what he said, the people that work for WWE say that when it comes to the regular fans, it doesn't bother them if maybe the text out what happened or maybe take a picture or so, what have you. But when it comes to him, it's an exception because he works for a notable dirt sheet that looks at him as a reliable source. So with that said, J.J. Williams cannot report what's happened or who's advanced in the tournament anymore. Which would explain why Ringside News didn't have an article up talking about Day 2 Mae Young Classic spoilers. that would explain why Ringside News, that would explain why possibly other sites out there did not report the spoilers or the results of the second day of the 2018 Mae Young Classic. And if that is indeed true, that would also explain why we haven't seen many SmackDown spoilers lately, because it seems WWE now is starting to crack down on spoilers. The same can't be said for Raw though, which is a surprise, but it seems WWE now is trying to finally crack down on the spoilers so that you have to tune in and watch the product. And my guess is someone, whether it's Triple H, Arn Anderson, whether it's Triple H or whoever, Ryan Ward, whoever, probably discussed the fact that maybe one of the reasons the product isn't doing so well is due to the fact that fans already know what's going to happen, because people are spoiling what's going to happen because they are texting out what's happening at the event as they're live in attendance. So again, it would explain why, we haven't really seen many SmackDown spoilers, although maybe that's just some people's choice not to spoil SmackDown, because SmackDown's is turning out some good product as we speak. But it would explain, that doesn't explain why Raw isn't under the same, protection. And, well, of course, it's also the fact that these get broadcast live on television, so people at home can pretty much text you what's going to happen before it happens if you live in mountain time zones, West Coast, you name it. So yeah. Either way, it looks like WWE is cracking down on spoilers, mostly for those that are attending live and in person. And if that's the case, then like I said, apparently, this is what I think happened. I think they may have had a meeting, probably discussed why Raw wasn't doing so well, and that even despite the fact that SmackDown is, getting positive reviews by people that it's not doing so well, I'm pretty sure one of the reasons that they pointed out is the fact that everybody knows what's going to happen before it happens, which is why now I'm guessing we're seeing a crackdown on that security. And if that's the case, all the power, and if that's the case, more power to WWE. They want, because obviously WWE's realizing, hey, if we're going to make our product unpredictable and exciting, we can't let people know what's going to happen. Now, you might say, well, they broadcast live SmackDown and Raw in certain parts of the country. Yeah, they do. But you know what? That might change as well. Because think about it. Just because a show comes on at 8 p.m. Pacific and Eastern and 9 p.m. Central or 7 p.m. Central doesn't mean they won't change that around. They might say it's going to be straight up 8 o'clock all the way, all across the board. They might say at 8 o'clock all across time zones, we're going to start broadcasting Raw, we're going to start broadcasting SmackDown, so that way, not many people are spoiled by what's going to happen. I wouldn't put it past WWE to do that. I wouldn't. If right now, them preventing some people like Williams and Meltzer and Alvarez and whoever else from spoiling certain events that are basically being taped for a later air date, so that people that tune in will be surprised, then I wouldn't put it past them that the next step is to probably change the times. I wouldn't put it past them, what I'm trying to say, for the next step to be for them to probably change the air time for Raw and SmackDown. Like I won't be surprised if they try to work it to where it comes across or comes on around 8 o'clock all across the board. Because even, let's say, they start filming it at 6 o'clock here on the West Coast, or 7 o'clock on the West Coast, start filming it, start airing it live, I wouldn't put it past them to, like you say, make it to basically start airing it across at 8 o'clock across the board, all across the country, doesn't matter what time zone, so that way you'll be genuinely surprised. Obviously WWE is taking precautions now to make the show once again unpredictable, to the point that you have to tune in to see what's going to happen. Now, what does that mean for someone like, let's say, Deluxe Man or OTR Central? It would basically mean, if the next step is to, down the line, and this is just an opinion of what I think they'll probably end up doing if they decide to go this route, where they decide to air the show at 8 o'clock all across the board. And I know that sounds kind of impossible, if you will, but they'll find a way. They'll find a way. Because here's the thing. They'll find a way. You might say, well, they got to show it live. Well, yeah, they do have to show it live if it's here in the West Coast. Yeah, they got to show it live. But they'll find a way. They will find a way. I don't know what they'll do, but knowing if this company is desperate enough to make sure spoilers are no longer an issue, I wouldn't put it past them to probably take that next step to go that route, to try to figure out how to make sure nobody spoils Raw or SmackDown before it airs. Even if they watch it. Well, here's what I think is going to happen. Everybody talks about the dirt sheets. This Williams being told not to do this anymore. Here's what I think is going to happen. WWE is going to crack down on the dirt sheets. They're probably going to have their attorneys, their legal team, contact all the dirt sheets out there, from Ringside News to Wrestling Observer, you name it. And they're going to say, look, you either stop spoiling what's going to happen on Raw and SmackDown, even as it airs, or we're going to sue you for everything you got. And don't put it past WWE not to do that. So when you actually think about it, that could be the next step they take to make sure that the product is not ruined. And if that's the case, fine. More power to you. But what this would make but in the long run, what this is going to make WWE do is have to improve on the product. That's what it's going to make them do. So, anyway, yeah, that's what happened recently at the Mae Young Classic. Basically, J.J. Williams, again, not the football player, but of Wrestling Observer and F4W Online and other places, and other wrestling sites, basically tweeted out that he is no longer allowed, maybe even along with other dirt sheet people like Meltzer and Alvarez and whoever else, is no longer allowed to spoil what's going to happen at the Mae Young Classic, or maybe even any WWE, NXT, Raw, SmackDown live event, whatever. So yeah, that's also what's happened. And again, I wouldn't put it past WWE to take that next step and probably threaten legal action against all these wrestling dirt sheets and sites to make sure that nothing gets spoiled, especially when it comes to Raw and SmackDown, so that Raw and SmackDown can once again be unpredictable in their eyes. I wouldn't put it past them. Because if they're as desperate, as I said in the first thing I talked about, to try to acquire the likes of the Bucks and Omega before the G1 Supercard, if the rumors about that could be true, then I wouldn't put past WWE to go in this route to make sure dirt sheets don't end up spoiling Raw or SmackDown ever again, and doing it by threatening legal action. I wouldn't be surprised by that. So, anyway, Anyway, last thing, and a lot of people have been talking about this. The last thing I want to talk about, Colt Cabana, who I actually met in person one time at a Central States Wrestling event. Very kind guy. Took a nice picture, did this above me, literally like, ah, you know, it's like cool. He's a cool guy. But Colt Cabana, real name Scott Colton, apparently, according to a report, according to Chicago Sun-Times, is suing Phillip Brooks, aka CM Punk, for fraud and basically not living up to his end of the deal. And in case you guys don't know, CM Punk and Colt Cabana went to court, won a defamation case against the WWE and their doctor. Basically won the lawsuit. But then on top of that, you think everything, so you would think everything's hunky-dory, right? Everything's good. Everything's hunky-dory. But that's not the case. Because you see WWE, not WWE, but you see, according to Chicago Sun-Times, CM Punk has not lived up to his end of the bargain. CM Punk basically, according to what has been reported, it's been signed, and CM Punk even signed off on this in negotiations and contracts, basically stated that Colt Cabana would be 100% in the clear of any charges or any kind of like legal any kind of legal bills and all that. He'd be completely clear. That doesn't seem to be the case, because now, according to the report, CM Punk is going back on his word, and instead of paying in full what would keep Colt Cabana in the clear, he's asking instead for half of it, because the total amount, according to what was reported, is basically above $513,000, almost close. I'm just going to round it out to almost $514,000 in attorney fees and legal bills. And Colt Cabana is not happy about this. Basically, long story short, when his interview with Punk went viral, it sounds like he wasn't too thrilled about that, but I guess that time went on, blew it off. But then, I guess, like I said, Punk had agreed to make sure he stayed in the clear, that he wouldn't have to suffer any, backlash. In other words, the backlash being attorney fees and bills, piling up. That basically Punk said, hey, you'll be 100% clear, I'll take care of you. That didn't happen, and now Colt Cabana is suing Punk for basically lying to him, and not being true to his word. So yeah, it seems Punk, Phil Brooks, cannot stay out of trouble. Can't stay out of trouble legally. Now what's going to happen here? Well, hopefully this is why I look at it. Hopefully cooler heads prevail, and they settle something outside of court. Because the last thing Punk needs is for his reputation to spiral downwards even further. Because already he's taken a hit with this whole UFC phase. This whole UFC Ultimate Fighter Championship phase he's going through. He's already taken a hit there. So the last thing he needs to do is take another hit legally, courtesy of being taken to court by his best friend, or now former best friend. So hopefully, God willing, cooler heads prevail. But yeah, I think Alex, the Lex Man, basically said it best when he read this yesterday. He basically said, Punk, just go ahead and pay him the money. You saved up enough. You should be able to pay off that part like you said you would for Scott Colton, Colt Cabana. You should be able to do that. But if not, then I don't know where Punk goes from here. But you know what this does kind of tell me a little bit? it sounds like something's up. Because CM Punk, we know he can, in character, on screen, and then sometimes in real life, can be a bit of a a-hole. We know that. You know, we know that. Everybody has said that what you sometimes get on camera, sometimes you'll get that in real life. So yeah, we know sometimes when he gets in the mood, he can be an a-hole. But he's also smart enough to save up his money. Or at least he should be smart enough. I mean, people have said that when he left WWE, people were worried that he financially wouldn't be alright. But everybody kept saying, hey, Punk's gonna be cool, he's gonna be okay, he knows how to take care of himself. He saved up his money, he's set for life, stuff like that. But one has to wonder if maybe something happened. One has to wonder if maybe he's not as set as he used to be. Like perhaps what's occurred is he spent a lot of money trying to live out his UFC dream, and perhaps that's what's hurt him financially. That he spent so much money trying to live out his UFC dream that financially it's kind of tanked him. It's kind of hurt him in a sense to where now, where he'd be able to probably pay off that portion that Cabana said he would, living up to it, you know, keeping his word and everything, then maybe perhaps his, you know, his UFC dream has taxed him financially. That perhaps he doesn't have the savings that he used to have. He doesn't have the wealth that he used to have before. That instead now he needs to save as much as he can. Like, okay, financially he's probably well off to pay bills, pay his mortgage, whatever. He's well off to do all that. But there are other things that he's not well off to do. Like I said, like he could have the money to pay off his bills, pay off his mortgage, and all that, get food in his house. But there's still, even with that, but when you take all that into account, that might not leave him with as much as he would hope. So, especially if it's to help pursue his dream as a UFC fighter. So, my thought process is this. He probably spent more than he should have trying to pursue his dream as a fighter in the UFC, that it taxed him to the point that when this situation finally went to court and he had to pay off certain bills and attorneys, then maybe he wasn't left with enough to pay off Colt Cabana. That's what I'm thinking. And if that's the case, and people start thinking that as well, they're going to start, and I hate to say this, they're going to start saying what everybody's been saying, or what a lot of people have been saying, and that is this whole UFC deal was nothing but a mistake on Punk's part, because in reality, let's face it, guys, Punk is still bitter at WWE, not because of the doctor situation. Oh no, not just because of that. Not just because of that legal battle he went through, because of defamation and all that against WWE and the doctor. No. It's mainly because WWE didn't do what he felt was right. They didn't treat him right. In other words, you can't tell me that someone that lived and breathed and loved pro wrestling like CM Punk did, you can't tell me that him leaving the way he did wasn't just because of doctors and WWE lying, doctors lying, the WWE doctors and everything lying about his condition and all that. You can't tell me it wasn't just that. And you can't just tell me it wasn't because he was burnt out. It's mainly because of the fact that CM Punk was upset that, hey, he held that company's top championship for so long that not once, unless it was against certain athletes, not once was he ever put in the main event. Not once did he close out the show unless it was against certain athletes. And most importantly, he was the champion during WrestleMania, So you obviously could see exactly what I'm talking about. That CM Punk basically felt, hey, even if I'm facing Chris Jericho, me and Jericho should have closed out the show. You get what I'm saying? There's still a part of a lot of fans that believe that above all this situation that's going on with Punk right now, that he is still upset at the fact that WWE didn't treat him the way he wanted to be treated. That they didn't say, hey, look, you're the champ, you and Jericho are fighting for the championship of WrestleMania, and even though we got The Rock and Cena as one of the main headlines, you know what, you guys close out the show because that's the right thing to do. And if he's still upset about that, okay, fine, but you don't go out and basically spend your way, not to the poorhouse, but basically to a point that you can't live up to your end of the bargain or your end of the deal and pay off the legal fees and everything you promised your best friend you would do for him. If you financially are using some of that money to live out your UFC dream just to stick it to WWE. You know, it doesn't look good for you, and it doesn't look good for those involved with you. So, honestly, look, we know Punk still has to swallow a bit of peel down the line, and so does WWE. But the point is, again, Punk has always been praised as someone that basically knows how to manage his money, and at times is a person of his word. So for him not to live up to that tells me there is more to the situation, and I think it has to do with the fact that he spent a lot of his money trying to live out his UFC dream. So that's just my take on it, folks. That's just my take. But anyway, that's really all I'm going to say on it. Again, the things I talked about here, it seems that according to the first thing I talked about, WWE, according to some reports, haven't read it all yet, is planning or is in the process of trying to pursue and acquire certain ROH and New Japan talent, mostly the Bucks and Omega, before the G1 Supercard next year. That, according to a rumor, that's possibly that's the plan right now for WWE. As well as also reported, it seems that WWE is now cracking down on spoilers being leaked out for certain events and shows and stuff. According to F4W Online Wrestling Observer's JJ Williams, who basically was singled out as not being allowed to spoil any match results and all that because he might be asked to leave or get kicked out of the building. And it seems that also goes to Alvarez and Meltzer and anybody else in that category or in that job description. And again, I wouldn't put it past WWE to take the next step, which would be to threaten legal action against all these wrestling news sites down the line if they try to spoil what happens on SmackDown and Raw, even if they're reporting it from home because they're watching it on television. I won't put past WWE to probably take that next step. And then again, last thing I talked about, the whole thing with Colt, Cabana and CM Punk and the legal situation between those two now because Punk didn't live up to his end of the deal. So that's really all I'm going to say on it, folks. I'm going to try to get myself something to eat real quickly. I've got about 11 minutes to do so. So let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. I'd like to hear from you. And I'll talk to y'all later.